It begins not with a shout, but with a whisper, one that lives in the quiet corners of your mind, a voice that says, "You're not enough. You're too late, too weak, too old, too broken." Most people hear it every day in some form or another. It doesn't scream, it corrodes. Slowly, invisibly, it chips away at the foundation of belief until the strongest man is hollowed out by doubt, and that is precisely how the world wins. What if I told you that belief in yourself isn't some motivational slogan, it's a declaration of war? Not against others, but against the very systems designed to keep you docile, hesitant, compliant. When you believe in your own hand, your own voice, your own power to shape reality, you are doing more than being positive. You are rebelling. You are standing on ground where most men kneel. Look around. In business, in politics, in your own relationships, who moves first? Who claims opportunity? Who hesitates? The world rewards those who decide and punishes those who wait. That is not theory. It is measurable, observable, and backed by behavioral science. According to the Harvard Business Review, decision-making speed is directly linked to career success, not just in entrepreneurs, but in corporate leadership and daily life. Confidence in action outpaces hesitation, even when mistakes are made. But belief is not blind. It is not reckless hope. It is a strategy, a calculation. It says, "I trust my vision more than I fear the unknown." You sharpen your instincts like a blade and then trust that blade to cut when the time comes. Without belief, you are malleable, bent by every whisper of doubt, broken by every gust of fear. But with it, you become iron. You bend reality to your will instead of being bent by it. There was a time when Thomas, a 47-year-old man from Indianapolis, sat at his kitchen table watching his business crumble, debt mounting, reputation damaged, partners abandoning ship. The voices inside and around him urged him to walk away, to accept defeat. But instead, he stayed up night after night, not to cry, not to panic, but to plan. He drew diagrams on legal pads, he made calls, he negotiated new deals. And most importantly, he believed. He believed that he was not finished. That story didn't make headlines. But 2 years later, Thomas built a new company, stronger, leaner, smarter. The kind that doesn't just survive downturns, but outlasts them. That's what belief does when it's forged through fire, not fantasy. It does not whisper affirmations, it roars conviction. It moves like a general surveying the field, knowing full well the risks, the enemies, the losses, but choosing to advance anyway. That is not emotion. That is clarity. That is power. So when the world tells you to sit still, when fear and hesitation try to lull you back to sleep, remember this. Belief in yourself is not optional. It is the first act of resistance. It is the ignition point. Say it to yourself now and say it like you mean it. I trust myself above all. Trust is a word we throw around carelessly. We say it to friends, to colleagues, to strangers we barely know. But the kind of trust that changes your life, that fortifies your mind and steels your spirit, is not something you give away. It's something you forge. And it begins with one person, yourself. Most people scatter their trust like leaves in the wind. They trust their government to protect them, their employer to reward them, their family to never falter, and their friends to stand firm when storms come. But history and your own experience has already taught you the truth. Loyalty shifts, promises rot, circumstances change. What felt solid today can dissolve by morning. Niccolo Machiavelli, in his legendary treatise on power, warned rulers never to lean too heavily on the loyalty of others. Why? Because human nature is volatile, affection fades, interests diverge. And if your power is built on their word, it crumbles the moment they walk away. True strength, Machiavelli argued, comes from independence, specifically psychological independence. Think of a commander standing before a map of battle. He doesn't rely on hope or hearsay. He knows his resources. He understands his terrain. He calculates every move. His trust is not given. It's earned through preparation. And when he commits, he does so without flinching. That is not arrogance. That is earned confidence. That is how you must lead your life. Eleanor, a 52-year-old cancer survivor from Charleston, learned this the hard way. She trusted every doctor, every statistic, every scan. And when the prognosis grew darker, she felt herself falling. But one night, alone in her hospital room, she asked herself, what if I trusted myself the way I've trusted everyone else? What if I made my own rules for how I fight this? From that moment, everything changed. Diet, routine, mindset. She endured the pain not because others told her she could, but because she decided she would. Today, she speaks to hundreds of patients each year, not as a doctor, not as a coach, but as a woman who forged trust in her own voice when every other voice fell silent. You build that kind of inner trust the same way you build muscle, through discipline, through deliberate action, through knowing that when pressure rises, you will not fold. And when others see that in you, when they feel the calm in your voice, the stillness in your eyes, they respond. Not because you asked for their respect, but because you radiate it. Trust in yourself is not just emotional comfort, it is your shield, your compass, your weapon. Without it, you're clay in a storm. With it, you're granite, solid, grounded, immovable. Say it aloud now, and say it as a command, not a request. My trust is my power. Everyone celebrates persistence in theory. We admire stories of the underdog who refused to quit, of inventors who failed 1,000 times before the breakthrough. But in reality, persistence is rare, because pain is real, rejection stings, and failure humbles even the strongest. That's why most people fold. They surrender not because they lack ability, but because they lack endurance. But here's the hard truth. The world is not kind to the hesitant. It is not merciful to the fragile. Life does not stop to comfort those who stall. It moves forward, with or without you. And the only way to meet it head-on is through the kind of persistence that outlasts pain, outsmarts failure, and outpaces fear. The philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold. He likened fate to a woman, unpredictable, wild, and partial to those who refuse to kneel. That metaphor, while ancient, still rings with power today. Life will test your limits. It will knock you down, and in those moments, you will be given a decision: submit or sharpen. Kevin, a former high school teacher from St. Paul, Minnesota, had a dream of writing a book, not a hobbyist's dream, but a real goal, a burning passion. After dozens of rejections from publishers, the message seemed clear: give up, get back to reality. But Kevin didn't. He studied the market. He rewrote every chapter. He learned digital publishing, marketing, and content strategy. He worked his day job and wrote at night. 2 years later, his book quietly hit the charts, then caught fire. Today, it's required reading in several universities. Why? Because he refused to quit. Persistence is not a feeling. It's a decision. It's the moment you tell yourself, I may not have won today, but I'm not finished. It's the mindset that sees rejection not as proof of inadequacy, but as information, data showing where to improve, how to sharpen, where to strike next. In psychological terms, it's known as a growth mindset, a belief that ability can be developed through dedication and effort. Stanford researcher Carol Dweck's work has shown time and time again persistence is the single greatest predictor of long-term achievement. And make no mistake, persistence is terrifying to your enemies. They can handle strength, they can handle talent, but they cannot handle a man or woman who refuses to be defeated. A person who rises every time they fall becomes immortal in the arena of ambition. Say this now and commit it to memory, not as motivation, but as identity. I will never give up. Let those words mark your presence, because persistence is not just what gets you through hard times, it's what turns those times into triumph. Pain is universal. No man, no woman, no soul walks through life untouched by it. We are born into struggle. Some inherit it, others meet it by accident, but eventually, pain finds everyone. The question is never, will I suffer? The question is, what will I do with my suffering? For many, pain becomes a prison. It paralyzes. It replays itself in the mind like a cruel melody. But for a rare few, pain becomes something else entirely: a teacher, a forge, a source of power. And the difference between the two isn't luck. It's choice. It's mindset. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and author of Man's Search for Meaning, wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose, and in our choice lies our growth and our freedom. He watched men die in agony, yet saw some rise beyond their suffering because they chose to assign meaning to it. Pain, then, was no longer the enemy. It was fuel. Angela, a combat veteran from Houston, returned from war with scars, physical and invisible, PTSD, anxiety, isolation. But instead of drowning, she turned her experience into purpose. She started working with at-risk youth, teaching them resilience, purpose, and control. Her pain became her platform. Her wounds became her armor. Today, she's a keynote speaker, helping thousands heal not by avoiding their pain, but by facing it, shaping it, owning it. Every betrayal teaches vigilance. Every failure teaches adaptation. Every heartbreak forces clarity. If you let it, pain will sharpen you. It will burn away weakness, expose the lies you told yourself, and demand that you rebuild from something real. Biologically, pain triggers neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and grow. In simpler terms, hardship can make you smarter, stronger, faster, if you meet it with discipline and deliberate action. When you face pain and do not break, you become intimidating. People who have never walked through fire cannot understand how you still stand. Your endurance becomes a mystery, and that mystery becomes power. They see someone who doesn't crumble, who doesn't retreat, who smiles even when struck, and they wonder, what kind of person survives that? Say this now: my pain becomes my strength. Not because pain is good, but because I'm stronger. Let that be your creed. Let your scars be your symbols. You are not soft. You are not a victim. You are a forge of fire and resolve. And the world will either fear you or follow you. Emotion is a gift and a curse. It colors life. It drives art, love, passion. But in the battlefield of power, emotion is a trap. It seduces you into impulsive choices, blinds you to danger, and hands control to those who know how to push your buttons. If you do not master your emotions, someone else will. Anger feels powerful, but it blinds. Fear feels urgent, but it freezes. Pride feels righteous, but it isolates. Lust feels intoxicating, but it enslaves. These emotions are not evil, but left unchecked, they are leashes, and you become the dog. Machiavelli warned that rulers must always prioritize calculation over feeling. Not because they lack heart, but because they understand stakes. To lead, to survive, to win, you must think in terms of outcomes, not outbursts. You must ask, will this serve me? Or will this satisfy me momentarily while it sabotages everything I've built? Take Jack, a 58-year-old restaurateur in Chicago. When his business partner betrayed him, everyone expected him to erupt. But Jack did nothing, at first. He waited, he watched, he gathered facts. And 6 months later, he executed a quiet legal maneuver that regained control of the company and left the traitor powerless. No screaming, no threats, just cold, deliberate strategy. Today, Jack owns 3 thriving restaurants. His enemies learned the hard way: silence can be more dangerous than rage. This is the art of detachment. It doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you feel, but you do not act until logic approves. You delay reaction. You measure response. You let emotion become a tool, not a master. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Emotional regulation improves decision-making, raises resilience, and increases performance under pressure. The military trains this into its elite. So should you. Picture a chess master. The opponent slams a piece. The crowd murmurs. But the master sits still. He breathes. He calculates. He sees 5 moves ahead. While others play with passion, he plays to win. That must be you. Don't play for the applause. Play for the end game. Say it now. I choose strategy over emotion. Make that your law, because those who lash out reveal their weaknesses. Those who wait, adapt, and strike with timing, those are the ones who rule. Let others rage. Let them boast. Let them fall into traps they built for themselves. You move in silence. You move with clarity. You move with power. Confidence is misunderstood. It's not loud. It's not showy. It doesn't announce itself with arrogance or demand attention. True confidence doesn't need to be seen. It radiates. It's an energy, a posture, a presence that enters the room before you speak a single word. It's the quiet certainty that you are ready for whatever comes, because you've earned it. Many mistake noise for strength, but insecurity is loud. Real confidence is often silent. It lives in preparation, in mastery, in the quiet repetitions no one sees. Confidence built on fantasy collapses under pressure. But confidence built on discipline, on years of work, on tested resilience, that kind of confidence is unshakable. Marcus, a 62-year-old trial attorney from Philadelphia, was once asked what made him so feared in court. He said, "I prepare harder than anyone. That's why I'm calm. That's why I walk in like I've already won." And it was true. He didn't pace the halls or raise his voice. He didn't bluff. He simply stood with a presence that told the room, "I'm not hoping, I know." Psychologists call this earned confidence, a byproduct of competence and repetition. It's not fake it till you make it. It's make it till you can't be shaken, and it's contagious. When you walk with conviction, people follow, not because they like you, but because certainty is magnetic in a world drowning in doubt. But beware, confidence must never tip into arrogance. Arrogance overestimates. Confidence measures. Confidence knows both strengths and limits. It protects its weaknesses. It reinforces its edges. Arrogance crashes because it assumes. Confidence endures because it prepares. You build confidence like you build a fortress, brick by brick, skill by skill, through trials, setbacks, discipline, and pain. And over time, your aura changes. People begin to mirror you. They feel steadier around you. Even enemies hesitate, not because you threaten them, but because your presence alone feels like a threat. Say it now, clearly and without apology. My confidence is unshakable. Etch that into your bones is. Not because life will always go your way, but because you've trained yourself to face it regardless. That's real confidence. Not the kind that hopes, the kind that knows. And when you walk with that kind of certainty, you don't have to demand respect. You command it. Control is not about domination, it's about design. It's about structuring your internal world so clearly, so powerfully, that the external world begins to bend to your rhythm. Without control, power is temporary. With control, power becomes legacy. Let's start with the foundation, self-control. If you cannot command your own urges, emotions, and impulses, then you will always be someone else's pawn. Rage will speak for you. Fear will decide for you. Lust will move you. Comfort will lull you into weakness. But when you command yourself, when your desires serve your goals and not the other way around, you become sovereign. No longer ruled, no longer reactive. That's where real power begins. Control then extends outward, over others, not through force but through influence, perception, and leverage. People are moved by fear, by respect, by dependence. A man who provides stability is followed. A man who radiates certainty is trusted. A man who controls information, who knows when to speak, when to withhold, holds more power than a dozen men with weapons. This is not manipulation. It is mastery of environment. Evelyn, a CEO in Atlanta, built her company not by barking orders, but by crafting a culture of silent accountability. She rarely raised her voice. She didn't micromanage. But everyone knew she saw everything. She controlled information flow. She shaped narratives before others could. And because of that, her authority was never questioned, not out of fear, but because of her invisible presence. That's the art of control. True control is not visible. It's subtle. It's in your tone, your silence, your pace. It's in the way you respond slowly while others rush. It's in how you reveal nothing when others spill everything. It's in knowing that sometimes the less you say, the more people obey. But understand this, control demands sacrifice. You cannot indulge every feeling. You cannot explain every move. You cannot need to be liked or validated or understood. Control is lonely, but it is powerful. And those who master it often find they no longer need to demand power. They simply become the center of it. Say it now. I control myself, and therefore I control all. Make that your creed. Because without self-control, every other kind of power is an illusion. But with it, you are not just playing the game, you are writing its rules. Betrayal and loyalty, two words that carry the weight of every broken heart, every ruined partnership, every toppled empire. If you're going to rise, you must stop seeing these as emotional events and start seeing them as strategic forces. Because whether you lead a company, a family, or yourself, you will encounter both, and how you handle them will determine your altitude. Here is the truth most can't stomach. Betrayal is inevitable, even from those who smile beside you, even from those who swore they'd never leave. Because when loyalty is tested, most people choose what's easy, what's safe, or what's self-serving. Machiavelli never romanticized loyalty. He measured it. He saw that most men are loyal only while it benefits them. So what do? You expect betrayal. You plan for it. You do not hand anyone the keys to your kingdom. You divide responsibility. You limit access. You watch closely, not out of paranoia, but out of principle. If someone must betray you to gain everything, you've already lost. Never let one man hold your fate in his hands. Consider Daniel, a 55-year-old tech founder from Seattle. When a close partner sold proprietary information to a competitor, the board expected Daniel to implode. But he didn't. Why? Because he had safeguards, layers of access, contingency plans. He didn't need revenge. He needed a solution. Within weeks, the damage was controlled, the traitor exposed. The system adapted. Daniel didn't crumble. He recalibrated. And then there's loyalty, the kind that doesn't flinch under pressure, the kind that stays when things get ugly. That kind is rare, but it's not random. It's engineered. Loyalty, when real, is born from alignment of interests or calculated fear. People stay loyal when betrayal costs them more than staying. You must become the kind of person others cannot afford to betray. Use rewards wisely. Don't give for free. Give with intention. A gift should create obligation. A position should build dependence. A favor should generate debt. That's not cruelty. That's design. Because blind loyalty is a fantasy. Strategic loyalty is security. Say it now, with clarity. Betrayal strengthens me. Loyalty serves me. These are not cynical words. They are armor. They protect you from being naive. They prepare you to lead without delusion. Trust slowly. Reward wisely. Expect nothing eternal. And always be ready to walk alone. Because the man who understands betrayal and loyalty, not as emotions but as tools, will never be surprised. He will never be blindsided. He will simply nod and move forward, stronger than before. Fortune, risk, adaptation. These are not poetic concepts. They are the mechanics of survival and dominance in a world that does not care about your intentions. They are the laws that separate those who rise from those who disappear. Let's begin with fortune. Some call it luck, some call it fate, but whatever you name it, understand this: it is fickle. Today it smiles, tomorrow it turns. Machiavelli described fortune as a river, calm one season, violent the next. The fool builds his house without foresight and is swept away. The wise man builds levees, strengthens his foundation, and adapts when the current shifts. The average man waits for a good time, waits for the right moment. But fortune rarely blesses the passive. It moves with the bold. Those who step forward when others freeze. Those who act before everything is perfect. Psychology calls this internal locus of control, the belief that you create your destiny. Studies show that individuals with this mindset succeed more, fail better, and bounce back faster. But boldness without calculation is suicide. That's where risk comes in. Not random, reckless leaps, but measured, strategic moves. You must know what you're willing to lose and what you stand to gain. And more importantly, you must know yourself well enough to stand firm when the gamble begins. Tracy, a single mother in Denver, risked everything to open a wellness clinic after leaving a toxic corporate job. Friends told her to wait. Banks said no. But she knew her market. She knew her value. She prepared. She adapted her business model 3 times in the first year. Today, she employs 14 people, serves thousands of clients, and owns the building she used to rent. Fortune didn't hand it to her, she wrestled it. Which leads to the final law: adaptation. You can plan perfectly, you can act boldly, but if you cannot pivot when the terrain shifts, you will break. The most dangerous man is not the one with the best plan. It's the one who updates that plan daily, without ego, without hesitation. Say it now: I risk, I adapt, I rule. Let it burn into your identity, because the world doesn't reward the rigid. It rewards the fluid, those who can change form, change strategy, change speed, not because they're lost, but because they're locked in. This is your law. Fortune favors the prepared, risk rewards the strategic, and adaptation crowns the relentless. Play all 3 like a symphony, and you'll never need permission to rise. Untouchable. It's a word many misunderstand. It doesn't mean invincible. It doesn't mean immune to pain, betrayal, failure, or fear. It means something far deeper. It means unbreakable. It means that no matter what the world throws at you, you stand, you endure, you adapt, you rise. To be untouchable is not a gift, it is a construction. It is built piece by piece from the bricks of belief, trust, pain, strategy, control, and persistence. It is not a posture, it is a foundation, and once you've built it, the storms may still come, but they do not move you. John, a 67-year-old former Marine from San Diego, said something once that captures this perfectly. The armor isn't what you wear, it's what you've survived. He wasn't talking about medals or muscles. He was talking about divorce, about losing a child, about watching his savings disappear in 2008, and yet, he still stood, still mentored, still led, because inside he had already decided, I do not break. Not. To be untouchable is to walk through betrayal with open eyes and a closed heart. To see failure not as defeat, but as direction. To sit in silence while others scream, knowing that your mind is sharper than their noise. It's to act with precision while the world reacts with panic. It is also to wear the mask, not to deceive, but to protect. You do not show every scar. You do not expose every plan. You let the world see what serves your mission, and you guard the rest. Your image becomes intentional, sometimes humble, sometimes fierce, always strategic. Say it now, with steady breath and full conviction, I am untouchable, not because I cannot be hurt, but because I refuse to be broken. That is the final law, not one of avoidance, but of endurance, not one of fantasy, but of preparation. You have walked through belief, pain, risk, and discipline. You have studied the architecture of power. Now you must become the structure itself, built from principle, forged through adversity, anchored in clarity. The world does not respect weakness. It does not shield the innocent. It bows only to those who master themselves. Be that person. Build your fortress. Hold your ground. And let the world try, because no matter what it throws, you already decided, I am untouchable. Now you've built the fortress. You've walked through fire, betrayal, silence, and resilience. You've stood tall when others crumbled. But there is one final truth you must accept, one that most men fear to even whisper. Power is not a place. It's not a finish line. Power is war, eternal, relentless, unforgiving. The weak believe there comes a day when the battle ends, when you finally rest, finally coast, finally stop fighting. But Machiavelli warned us centuries ago, kingdoms do not fall when enemies strike. They fall when rulers grow complacent. Comfort, not conflict, is the greatest threat to power. Every day the battlefield shifts, rivals plot, fortune turns, new players emerge. Your past victories don't protect you, they paint a bigger target on your back. That's why the untouchable never relax completely. He doesn't live in fear, he lives in clarity. He expects war. Not because he's paranoid, because he's prepared. Consider the story of Samira, a business strategist from Boston. She scaled her startup to 8 figures, earning praise, press, and partnerships. But while others celebrated, she kept refining her systems. While others slept, she anticipated market shifts. When the recession hit, competitors folded. She expanded. Why? Because she never mistook peace for permanence. She understood the war never ends, and so must you. You must kill the weaker version of yourself every morning, the one who begs for comfort, who longs for certainty, who clings to yesterday's wins. That part of you is a liability. You must rise with the mindset of the eternal warrior. Alert, focused, evolving. Say it now. I am built for eternal war. Burn it into your bones, because only those who embrace this truth will endure. The battlefield changes, technology, politics, economics, relationships, but the core principle remains, adapt or fall, rule or be ruled. Fight or fade, do not seek an end to struggle. Seek to become the kind of person for whom struggle is fuel, for whom pressure creates focus, for whom war sharpens clarity. This is not exhaustion. This is evolution. And every time you rise, again and again and again, you become something more. The untouchable man does not fear the endless war. He welcomes it, because he knows that without it, he would soften. Without it, he would forget who he is. The war keeps him ready. The fire keeps him sharp. That is his crown. And now, it must be yours. There's a silent truth buried beneath every empire, every legacy, every enduring name. Nothing survives without discipline. Discipline is the scaffolding behind greatness. It's not glamorous, it doesn't sparkle. But it holds everything together when the winds of chaos blow. Without it, confidence is fake, strategy crumbles, and persistence becomes aimless motion. Discipline is doing what must be done, especially when you don't feel like it. It's not about motivation, it's about mastery. It's the decision to remain on course when emotion, fatigue, or temptation scream for detour. Modern psychology calls this delayed gratification, and it's one of the strongest predictors of long-term success, according to studies out of Stanford and the University of Rochester. Let's be clear. Discipline is not just about routine. It's about values in motion. It's waking up early, not for a badge, but because your mission demands it. It's choosing silence when noise feels easier. It's training the mind to obey intention, not impulse. Take William, a retired Navy SEAL living in Montana. He doesn't run 20 miles each morning because someone's watching. He does it because it keeps his edge sharp, because his discipline is not for applause, it's for survival. It's not about proving something, it's about preparing for everything. You must view discipline as armor. Every act of consistency adds another plate to your defense. Every time you resist distraction, you strengthen your focus. Every time you say no to comfort, you say yes to strength. Over time, this compounds into unshakable identity. I am the kind of person who follows through, period. And let's address the fear. Yes, discipline isolates, it separates you. People won't understand why you live the way you do. They'll mock it, resist it, or try to pull you back into softness. Let them. You're not building a life for validation. You're building one that lasts. Say it now. My discipline is my foundation. Say it like a builder laying the first stone, because that's what this is, brick by brick, action by action, until the man you become is not swayed by moods, trends, or critics. He is governed by will. That man doesn't need to shout. His life does the talking. Remember this, talent may open doors, but discipline walks you through them. Intelligence may give you an edge, but discipline lets you keep it. Fortune may smile, but only discipline turns brief success into lasting legacy. Make it who you are. Make it non-negotiable. Discipline is not a trait. It is a choice you make every single day. Choose it again. Choose it now. In every era, in every life, silence holds a strange kind of power. It is feared by the loud, misunderstood by the insecure, and mastered by the few who understand its weight. Silence is not emptiness. It is not absence. It is strategic restraint, and for those who wield it, silence becomes a sword sharper than any spoken word. In today's world, where everyone is rushing to speak, post, explain, and react, silence is rebellion. It signals strength. It says, I don't need to prove myself. I already know who I am. When you speak only when necessary, your words carry weight. When you act without announcing, your actions command respect. Think of leaders like Abraham Lincoln or General Eisenhower, men known not for their noise, but for their calm, deliberate presence. In negotiation rooms, in war councils, in moments of national crisis, they used silence not as a pause, but as a tool. And when they finally spoke, people listened, not because they were loud, but because they were rare. Consider Denise, a 60-year-old criminal defense attorney from Baltimore. She once said, "The best weapon in court isn't a brilliant argument. It's the 5 seconds of silence right before it." That pause? It's where fear grows in your opponent. It's where confidence settles in your bones. It's where power changes hands. The same applies in life. When you are silent, you observe. You see patterns others miss. You recognize lies before they finish. You read motives, insecurities, and weaknesses. You gain time, space, leverage. But most importantly, you gain control over yourself. And that control builds mystery, and mystery builds power. Say it now. My silence is my strategy. And understand what that means. You do not explain your every move. You do not react to every slight. You do not bleed emotions to be understood. You watch, you measure, you decide. The untouchable man or woman uses silence like armor. Not to hide, but to hold power. The silence says, I do not need validation. I do not need to be seen to be effective. I do not seek applause. I seek advantage. And that presence, that stillness, that unpredictability, it terrifies those who rely on noise to feel strong. So, speak when you must. But let your silence do most of the talking. In silence, you listen. In silence, you strike with precision. In silence, you rise unseen until it's too late for anyone to stop you. If silence is the weapon of the wise, then perception is the battlefield on which power is truly played. People don't respond to what you are. They respond to what they believe you are. And those who master how they are perceived shape the narrative before a single word is spoken. This is not about deceit. It's about understanding that image matters. That every gesture, every response, every absence or presence sends a signal. If you leave your image to chance, the world will assign you one. But if you design it deliberately, the world adjusts to you. You must begin with the internal. Who are you when no one watches? What values govern your choices? What rituals shape your mind? Because authenticity, real authenticity, is the raw material of powerful perception. People can smell false confidence. But a man or woman who knows themselves, who lives aligned with their principles, that presence is undeniable. Then, construct the external. How do you speak? Do you talk to be heard or to influence? Do you react or do you respond? How do you enter a room? Do you take up space with calm certainty or with desperate energy? These details matter. As the philosopher Carl Jung once noted, the world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, it will tell you. Picture Malcolm, a 64-year-old strategist from Detroit. He was never the loudest man in the room. He dressed simply but cleanly. He spoke sparingly. Yet when negotiations hit a wall, everyone turned to him. Why? Because he had cultivated a presence, measured, confident, mysterious. His reputation preceded him, and because of that, he rarely had to assert dominance. It was already given. This is perception management, not manipulation, design. You craft your image like an artist. You hold back when it serves your plan. You speak only when necessary. You project what supports your goals and discard what doesn't. Over time, this builds something stronger than attention, influence. Say it now, my presence shapes perception. Let that become a mantra. Because in a world that rewards visibility, true power belongs to those who choose how, when, and why they are seen. Not because they fear being misunderstood, but because they understand being misunderstood is sometimes part of the plan. Your presence is your broadcast. Your silence is your control. Your image is your leverage. Shape them all with intention. That's how the untouchable move. Not with noise, but with presence. Not with force, but with design. And in doing so, they become impossible to ignore and impossible to defeat. This is the final piece, the closing chapter. But it's not the end, because for those who walk the path of mastery, there is no finish line. There is only evolution. The question that remains is simple. Now that you understand what it takes, will you live it? Untouchable is not a title. It is not something you earn once and wear forever. It is a choice, a discipline, a mindset sharpened daily through belief, forged in pain, refined by silence, armored by discipline, and driven by strategy. To become untouchable is to stop playing the game the world hands you and to begin building your own. This life is not soft. It does not reward hope without action. It does not favor the kind over the capable. It favors those who see clearly, act deliberately, and refuse to be broken by failure, betrayal, or time. The untouchable man or woman accepts this not with despair, but with resolve. They do not ask for an easier world. They ask to become stronger within it. Catherine, a 70-year-old survivor of 3 bankruptcies and a near-fatal illness, once said, "The moment I stopped asking, 'Why me?' and started saying, 'Try me,' everything changed." That is the final transformation, from victim to architect, from pawn to player, from broken to unbreakable. And now, it's your turn. Will you rise each day prepared to wage war, not against others, but against the weaker version of yourself? Will you adapt as the world shifts, refuse comfort, and shape your presence like a weapon? Will you trust yourself when silence surrounds you, persist when all doors close, and stand tall even when pain strikes hardest? Say it with conviction. I am untouchable, not because I can't be hurt, but because I will never stay down. This is your declaration, not to the world, to yourself. If this message spoke to you, if you felt your spine straighten, your breath deepen, your mind sharpen, then don't let it end here. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and comment below with your own truth. What have you endured? What are you building? What makes you unbreakable? Because you're not alone in this journey. You're part of a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a silent army of the disciplined, those who sharpen each other, who rise when others fall, who become the storm the world never saw coming. This is not goodbye. This is only the beginning. Welcome to the war that never ends. Welcome to the fortress you now carry inside. Welcome to the next evolution of who you were always meant to become. You are untouchable. Never forget it.